I gotta tell you, I don't really understand the concept of breakfast in bed. Is this a real thing, or is this just a Hollywood thing? To me, first of all, I don't like to eat breakfast very first thing in the morning. And secondly, I don't want to eat breakfast in bed. It just seems wobbly and you get crumbs in the bed, and I'm not sitting up straight. I like to sit in a chair when I eat breakfast. So I've never really been interested in making a breakfast in bed table, but hey, maybe people do that, I don't know. But a few weeks ago, Daniel Pozobon in Brazil, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Daniel. Well, at least the Pozobon part, not the Daniel part, I can get that. Anyways, he sent me an email and told me that where he lives it gets very cold, and he likes to just kind of stay in bed in the morning with his laptop. The problem with that is that if you use your laptop on your lap, it can heat up, it can heat you up, and there's not enough ventilation for the fan in it. So it got me thinking, wow, this could be a really cool project. So it's basically a breakfast in bed table, but it's for a laptop. So this is what I've come up with. This is my laptop table, and it's made out of oak, and I have Purple Heart splines in the joints. And those miter joints and splines are the only thing holding it together. The underside is just held together with dowels in some holes, and so the legs will fold up like that. This panel is just 1/4-inch plywood that I've got floating in grooves. I've made all of the other pieces out of 1/2-inch thick oak, including the legs. But I'm gonna get started on the frame. And that will hold the tray part. I just want to round over this inside edge. This is an occasion where making a mock-up out of, some cheap pine wood is really going to help me out. And so this is going to be my leg assembly, and I think what I'm going to do is just cut some dados in it, and this will be the support piece. But what I need to figure out is, and it's also going to be longer, I cut this one kind of short, but I need to figure out where this is going to be hinged. The idea here is that this will hinge right here, swing open, go past the vertical, and then hit the side of the tray. So what I'm doing is really kind of very non-scientific, is I just drilled a hole in this piece, and I've got a nail that will fit in there, and I'm just gonna kind of hold it in different spots and see exactly where that needs to go. And then when I get it, I can actually make a mark there. With that little hole from the nail in the side piece, I've set it up in my drill press with a stop block here so that I can drill each side piece at the exact same location. And I've got my drill press set to where it'll stop at about halfway through the board. All right, so now without moving my fence, I just need to move this stop block over to this side so that I can cut the other holes on the other side of the fences. And what I want to do is just make sure that this hole is the same distance across this way as this one is. And to do that, what I'm gonna do is just lower this bit down into that hole that I just made, and obviously it's away from the fence here, but what I'm concerned about is this distance. So I'm gonna move my stop block over to there, lock it down, and then I'll be good to go. And now I can just turn this board around, and it should be the same distance as the other hole. So those dados will hold together this cross piece like that. Here's how that assembly will go with those two dados cut, this cross piece in there. I'll slide a dowel through there. This isn't the one I'm going to use ultimately, but I want to test it out right now. Well, that was kind of tricky getting it all in there, but now it seems to work well. What I need to do, obviously now I can't lift it up because I need to round over these corners. Now I put it back in here to test it out, and it seems that's going to work out fine. I spent a lot of time rounding over all of these edges on the legs and sanding them very smooth, and well, because I think if you're in bed, the last thing you want are sharp edges. So now I can go ahead and glue all of these assemblies up. Also, I wanted to show you something about dowels that I've discovered over the years, is that there's kind of two different kinds. There's these darker ones and then the lighter ones. I'm sure it's two different kinds of wood. I thought they were all poplar. But anyways, these are 3/8 inch dowels, and this light colored one, it just goes through and swings freely. Now, this other one, also called a 3/8 inch dowel, is a very, very snug fit. So I'm gonna go with the snug fit ones because I don't want these legs to just kind of swing freely. I wanna just pull them up so that they'll kind of stay where they need to be. So here's my glue up. I've just glued this cross piece into those dados, and I've put the dowel into those two holes. Since it was kind of a tight fit, I thought I would do it now. And it also helps keep it square. So, you know, I just double check to make sure that this is all square. Now, there's no glue on the dowel. Now I've put it all back together again. I've just got it clamped up. I still haven't glued it together yet, and just to test and make sure everything is going to work out. It's going to be kind of a tricky glue up because I've got to get both these little side pegs in at the same time that I'm gluing this up and putting the tray in. Here's the tray all glued up. Now the only places where I have glue are on these 4 miter joints, and for something like a picture frame that would be fine alone, but this is going to take, you know, a fair amount of stress with those legs coming down, and a miter joint with the end grain butting up against end grain is really not the strongest joint. So I need to shore it up a little bit. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I've made this super simple spline cutting jig, and all it is a board, and I've got 2 other boards here that I've cut and set in here at 90-degree angles to each other. I've just glued and screwed them in, and then the bottom, the base, is all flat. So to use this jig, I'm just going to set it flush up against my rip fence. Now I can take my tray and just drop it right down into the jig. And there's my first slot. Now, of course, the only trick there is you want to make sure that you do some tests so that you don't go all the way through the corner. This is a good chance for me to use some scrap wood. I've got some real thin pieces of purple heart that I planed down even a little bit thinner so that they will fit into those slots like that. All right, there's my splines all glued in there. Just need to wait for them to dry now. And here's my completed laptop breakfast in bed tray with several coats of glossy lacquer on it. I like the way it turned out, and I especially like that I went with those tighter fitting dowels because that way it just stays in place for storage. One thing to keep in mind if you're going to build one of these things is how much clearance you need on it. Before I built this, I actually just sat in my bed to determine what was a comfortable height for it, and you know, so where my legs wouldn't be hitting it and jostling it around. Now, Daniel made one of these, and his is 6.5 inches high. Mine is 7.5 inches high, which feels pretty comfortable, and my elbows are well supported. And wow, that just all sounded really dirty, didn't it? But don't forget, you can still use this thing as a breakfast in bed tray if, you know, if that's your thing. But you'll still get crumbs in your bed.